This is the Doctor of the Future, and we're here to teach, learn, and grow with a community of pioneers in health. I'm Dr. Krystosik, and if you're interested in learning how to unleash the healing power of your body without drugs or surgery, well, then you're in the right place. Today, we're excited to continue our discussion with Dr. Galland, and we're about to wrap up the 4-part series on COVID-19. And our theme for today's podcast is how to put COVID-19 in jail where it belongs. Well, we've all been in quarantine over the last several months, and I believe if you listen to Dr. Galland's advice today, and of course if you go back and listen to his advice over the past 3 weeks, then you're going to learn how to put COVID-19 into lockdown. So, you and your loved ones don't have to live in fear, because this invisible intruder is able to have an impact on our lives, but we could start putting COVID-19 into jail if we apply some of these principles. Now, believe me, the advice Dr. Galland is going to give you is worth its weight in gold. But I want to tell you that before I continue my interview with Dr. Galland today, I'd like to give you just an overview of what you can expect and what you're going to learn. And the first thing I want you to know is that if you've never heard Dr. Galland before, well, I need to warn you that he often uses big medical words. Now, they can be intimidating, so I'm going to try to simplify it for you. And I'm going to help you along and give you some picture illustrations of the concept, that he's trying to teach us. And, today's no different because Dr. Galland is going to give us some basic science. And it's going to be a little bit confusing sometimes with these words. And we're going to be talking about, for instance, we're going to be talking about the drug hydroxychloroquine that is controversial. A lot of people are talking about it, and so you've heard about it in the news. But he's going to explain to you how this drug works to block COVID-19 from causing havoc inside the body. Now, remember here on this program that we believe in natural medicine first, and drugs and surgery last. But it's important that you become informed even about how some drugs work. So he'll be talking also about the critical importance of foods that contain a naturally occurring compound called polyphenols. Now, again, that's a mouthful, and Dr. Galland's talked about these compounds that are found in plants. He's talked about them before in the other 3 parts of the series that we're doing on COVID-19. But today he's going to be sharing more insights on how these amazing plant compounds can not only help fight against COVID-19, but they can also help to fight against bacterial infections. And how these polyphenols are able to play a critical role in preventing and treating antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Now, we're going to get into a brief discussion about how these polyphenols can help in fighting against antibiotic-resistant bacteria, and how these polyphenols can fight against these things by helping to support the microbiome. Now, if you've never heard about the microbiome, let me just give you a little synopsis of what it is, because it's very important, and we're going to be talking about the microbiome a lot on this program. So you really should understand what it is and how important it is to our health and well-being. First of all, in a nutshell, the microbiome is the bustling community of microorganisms, good, bad, and ugly, that could be living in our gut. Now, these microorganisms living inside of our gut especially can weigh up to 5 or 6 pounds. Now, folks, you got to realize that that's about the weight of the human brain. As a matter of fact, scientists are calling the gut microbiome the second brain in the body. And we talk a lot about how genetics plays an important role inside of our body and our health. And we need to realize that even though that we've got a lot of genes, we've got about 23,000 genes inside of our body. Well, I need to tell you that the microbiome inside of our body has over 3 million genes. So we've got to realize that who's really running the show inside of our bodies. And we need to understand that we've got more cells of bacteria and viruses and yeast and other microorganisms than we do have human cells. So we've got 10 times more of these microorganisms than we have human cells. So we have to understand the importance of this microbiome in treating disease, and because scientists tell us that the microbiome helps to prevent disease and as well help to treat disease. And we need to realize the microbiome helps to produce vitamins and minerals that are going to get absorbed better with the microbiome. All nutrients are going to get better absorbed with a healthy microbiome. So the microbiome is going to help us to digest our foods better. It's got so many functions that we could go on and talk about it for weeks, literally. It helps to prevent heart disease, brain disorders, diabetes, cancer. So you need to pay attention when he talks about the microbiome when it comes to helping to fight off bacterial and viral infections. So we're looking at that this week with Dr. Galland, and we'll be also examining the dilemma that we are actually currently in today with the COVID-19, because scientists are trying to find a way to get us back to normal. Well, Dr. Galland very astutely says we don't want to go back to normal. Instead, we need to create a new normal in medicine, and it should be based on the principles of functional medicine, natural medicine, the model that we talk about here, because this is the medicine of the future. And our old model of medicine is failing miserably against things like viruses like COVID-19 and, of course, antibiotic-resistant bacteria and chronic disease and so many other things. So the medicine of the future becomes so important because it's helping our own body. It's unleashing our own body's healing power. And so we're here on this program. We're excited to bring this information to you. And so we're going to get into Dr. Galland's discussion on these things today about how food being the best medicine, can help to put COVID-19 in jail. So without any further ado, I really want you to pay real close attention to Dr. Galland's presentation today. And let's get into part 4 of how to put COVID-19 into jail. Now, medicine, conventional medicine, they're trying to use hydroxychloroquine, right? So that's a lot of doctors and hospitals are using that. You talk about how, and I listened to some of your other podcasts, how the hydroxychloroquine actually increases the alkalinity of the environment inside the cell, and so it helps to break up the shield on the vacuole. Is that
there are many theories? There are many theories about what hydroxychloroquine does that might be beneficial.
Well, I'm wondering on that particular one, though, if you think if that's one of the reasons I know that it does is that it increases the alkalinity. Do you think that a plant-based diet would help be beneficial because it's alkaline in itself? Would have that
I don't think it produces enough of an effect at the on these what are called these endolysosomal vesicles. Okay. See, when the virus enters the cell, it fuses with pieces of the cell membrane to enter the cell, and it creates. It does so through these little bubbles called vesicles that become acidic. Some viruses are very sensitive to alkalinization and preventing the acidification. The SARS-CoV-2 virus, which causes COVID-19, doesn't appear to be as sensitive to alkalinization of the vesicles, or it's not as dependent on the acidification of the vesicles as other viruses are. So I'm not sure if that works well enough. There are many other theories about why hydroxychloroquine might work. Personally, I have been a little disappointed in hydroxychloroquine,
Mm-hmm.
alone or in conjunction with azithromycin. I have some colleagues who think it's great. I've used it a lot in the treatment of Lyme disease, and for COVID-19, it hasn't worked as well as I hoped it would have worked.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So Dr. Galland, I know that what I like to talk a little bit about is the second wave that a lot of people are talking about. And I just wanted to ask you what we should be doing to prepare ourselves for the second wave. I know a lot of the protocols you're talking about, but how important is that for us to understand?
Oh, I think it's vitally important because all of these quarantines and lockdowns, they're not going to eradicate the infection. They're not intended to eradicate the infection. Their whole intent, and this has been stated, although it usually isn't emphasized, is to slow down. This whole flattening the curve concept is to slow down the number of new cases so that the healthcare system is not overwhelmed by the number of people who suddenly become critically ill. Because that 2.5% of infected people who develop critical illness winds up being a lot of people when you have tens of millions infected, and that totally crushes the capabilities of our hospital system. So the idea is to slow it down so that the same number of people will get sick. They'll just get sick over a longer period of time so that the healthcare system can handle it better. I mean, that's what the whole strategy is. To me, that's a very incomplete strategy. It may be necessary.
So your protocol is like worth its weight in gold for people to understand when that second wave comes. If they're doing some of your strategies, or all of them, what I would recommend, would really help to protect them. Is that right?
That's my idea. I mean, that's why I put this together. Actually, I originally put it together just to organize my thoughts on what I would be recommending to patients and how I wanted to think about this. But when I saw what was happening in March nationally, I realized that we have to be preparing for a second wave and maybe a third wave, and that the measures that I've looked at, I think, need to be part of that strategy. And I would love to see more physicians and researchers and health professionals looking at this infection from that perspective, because I'm one person putting a series of ideas together. What we need are lots of people with lots of different types of experience, but working along the same principles. How do we address the early biology of this virus so that people don't get sick?
Yeah. Well, Dr. Galland, I've been following another invisible war that I believe that we're going to have to be involved in a not too distant future, and that's the war against superbacteria. My personal experience with it is my dad died from MRSA, and I think a lot of people are not really talking about it. Especially, we weren't prepared for this virus, and I think that the upcoming superbacteria infections that are going to occur in this country by many experts' estimation is going to be devastating. And I think it's going to make this coronavirus look like Mickey Mouse. What is your thoughts about bacterial, superbacteria, and the potential for it being able to be an epidemic?
Well, sure, that could happen because the bacteria are probably the secret that this coronavirus has, as I indicated, is its ability to spread rapidly from person to person. Bacteria usually don't spread so readily. So the kinds of epidemics of these superbacteria that we see, they're going to be in specific settings. They'll certainly occur in hospitals because there you have a bunch of people who we're already seeing them in hospitals.
Yeah, we're seeing infections actually happen in high school students in wrestling, their rooms on the mat and stuff. So I'm concerned.
Right. It's going to occur in settings where there is probably more prolonged or close exposure. And the whole success of modern medicine over the past 150 years has rested on microbiology, the ability to recognize the role of microbes in creating illness and to find ways to use aseptic and antiseptic measures, and then eventually antibiotics to control the microbes. Without that, medicine would have made no significant advances since the 19th century. And if we lose that, we're going to see things rolling backward in a major way. Now, that is where I think the microbiome is very important, and it's also where polyphenols are very important. And those two things, those two interests of mine over decades keep coming together. Polyphenols can influence the ability of resistant bacteria to be resistant. Polyphenols can overcome bacterial resistance by inhibiting the enzymes that bacteria use to pump antibiotics out, to have the mechanisms of bacterial resistance are not mysterious. They are due to bacterial enzymes, and the right polyphenols can inhibit those and allow antibiotics to work better. And interbacterial inhibition is a major factor in controlling bacterial infections, and that's where a healthy microbiome comes in. So I think that the right probiotics, prebiotics, proper use of antibiotics, and targeted use of plant-based polyphenolics can really help to prevent the domination of the superbugs.
So the thing about it is that we know that, getting everybody's gut in proper working order is going to be like paramount to help to provide people that protection against bacteria or even viruses. So do you see conventional medicine moving towards being able to do more extensive testing on the gut microbiome and helping to get the gut back in proper order? Do you see that happening?
Well, it's been moving in that direction.
It's been slow, but we've been watching this over years, right? It's been it's like molasses.
20 years ago, when I would talk about gut dysbiosis and gut ecology or leaky gut, and I might describe something to a patient, and the patient would say, "Well, my gastroenterologist said there is no such thing as that."
Dr. Galland, I used to on my radio program 25 years ago, when I was talking about the gut and microbiome, I used to have medical doctors call me and challenge me. We don't need to worry about that.
Right, I know. And then the thing that really changed this was new technology and the finding, and this really tells you how things work in this country also. The finding about 15 years ago that if you took a mouse that was germ-free and had no microbiome, and you fed that mouse lots and lots of fat, it would not get obese. Well, as soon as it appeared as if you could allow an animal to eat all the fat it wanted without getting obese just because it didn't have a microbiome, then the floodgates opened and all sorts of interest in the microbiome jumped up, and all of a sudden you're seeing leaky gut appear in mainstream medical journals. Intestinal permeability is right at it. The cutting edge of medicine. Dysbiosis is a term that's very widely used now, so it's due to technology and money, basically.
Yeah, sure. Well, we're getting close. And I'm curious. I got to ask you this question. So if you had the opportunity to stand in front of national television next to Dr. Fauci and Dr. Burke and the president, and you had an opportunity to talk to them and the rest of the country about what would you say to them about, COVID-19 and what we should be doing?
Well, you know, the question, look, I have put together a protocol that I would love to see widely implemented. I mean, minimally, let's just correct this epidemic of vitamin D deficiency in this country. The question that comes up these days in all these news briefings is, when do we get back to normal? And I think that's the wrong question, because normal was what allowed us to get where we are. Normal is a medical system that's not really a healthcare system. It's an illness response system that's reactive rather than proactive, that really doesn't look at the whole person, that's very spotty and in which there's very poor communication. And I'm not just talking about the public health aspects of it. I'm talking about the clinical practice. Illness is an economy that is driven by debt and consumer spending, with levels of corporate, household, and government debt at record highs. Normal is what allowed this to happen, and it's one of the reasons why we are heading into a really dismal-looking recession, because people start getting scared. They stay home, even without governors issuing stay-at-home orders. People start cutting back on consumerism, and the economy grinds to a halt. This isn't new, by the way. I mean, when I was in high school, we talked about this. It hasn't changed. So I think this is a really important time for us to reflect on what got us here. Mm-hmm. This is not some vicious monster from outer space that's attacking us. There are going to be way worse viruses in the future. There are going to be other superbugs.
Keep on mutating, right? And getting stronger.
Yeah, right. This is something that we should be able to handle. We should have been able to do way better than we did. And the fact that we didn't handle it, it's not just, it's a systemic failure.
Yeah, I agree.
And we really need to take a look. This is a time to reflect on how we got here and decide, what do we want the new normal to look like? I don't think it should look like the old normal.
Yeah, and the face of medicine needs to change. You get more like the preventative measures and the more cooperating with nature and the body. Like the Greeks said, vis medicatrix naturae. Use the healing power of nature to help our bodies heal itself. I don't think medicine's doing maybe even 10%. Einstein was said that, we only use 10% of the capacity of the brain. I believe that medicine today, as I'm sure you probably agree, is only using about 10% capacity of the body to heal itself.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I agree.
Before you leave here today, could you please, I know you're not going to stop doing your work because it's so needed. Please don't stop, okay? Because you do so much for us in functional medicine and really helping people to stay healthy. But, what would you like your legacy to be?
Well, one of the things that I've really focused on over the years was individualized medicine, a concept that I called patient-centered diagnosis. It's because, frankly, what I enjoy doing the most is interacting with patients one-on-one and trying to help them problem solve. And so what I hope that I have been able to introduce to other practitioners, and it certainly has been one of the cornerstones of functional medicine, is this concept that everybody is unique, every illness is unique. Let's understand the individual triggers and mediators that contribute to a person's illness and that can prevent the next illness.
What you're talking about here is like if let's say somebody has irritable bowel, you could have irritable bowel in conventional medicine. They're going to get a cookbook medicine. Everybody's going to get the same treatment. But in functional medicine, those 5 different people are going to get a personalized treatment, and those treatments may be different for each person, and the reason why they have that irritable bowel may be different. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. The factors that go into creating any individual illness for any one person are multiple, and each person deserves to have all of those factors considered and understood by a health practitioner. And that's the way that you allow people to really get to healing.
Well, Dr. Galland, this has been amazing to have you here and sharing all this vital information. Can we have you back again in the future? I really like to talk about your book, The Allergy Solution, that you and your son wrote.
Sure, I'm happy to talk about the allergy solution anytime.
Okay, well, listen, is there anything you'd like to say in parting today?
Well, I want to thank you for offering me the opportunity to share this information. I really want to urge everyone who's interested in natural healing and natural medicine to understand the way this virus works. Look at the principles that I've described, ACE2, weakening ACE2, the effects of furin and the 3CL protease. Become familiar with natural strategies that can impact those 3 enzymes, inhibiting 2 of them, reinforcing 1 of them. And I've explained that in what I've written and will continue to write.
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to post the notes from this presentation today, and we're going to give links to your articles so that people can really get the maximum benefit from what you share with us today. I want to thank you so much for being here, and stay healthy, okay?
Okay, you stay well yourself. It was good to talk with you.
You take care now. Well, that concludes part 4 series with Dr. Galland, and I've been really enamored by all the facts that Dr. Galland has brought to the table about how COVID-19 works to affect the human body and how we can actually incorporate foods and herbs and lifestyle medicine to help to be able to, again, put COVID-19 in jail, be strong and healthy and protect our immune system and strengthen our immune system so that we don't have to live in fear of this COVID-19. So I want to thank Dr. Galland for all of his hard work, his research, and especially taking the time that he did to share his knowledge with our listeners. And I want to encourage you to go back and listen to the other 3 parts of the series that Dr. Galland did, because there's so much valuable information there to help to equip you and your loved ones from ever having to get into a crisis and a battle with this invisible killer that we call COVID-19. And I think that it will be well worth your time to just study this more than once, because there's a lot of information here. And I encourage you to just stock your food cabinets and refrigerator and cupboards with the foods that Dr. Galland encouraged us to eat, and the herbs that he talked about, to be able to not only prevent, but help to find ways to help to overcome this invisible killer. So until next time on The Doctor of the Future, I'm Dr. Krystosik, and here's to your health.